Putin mocked the threats from the USA. Trump is furious. Russia is pulling reserves to the front. Any day now, a major offensive will begin in all directions. There is panic in the Kremlin. The largest sanctions package in history will destroy the Russian economy. You've never seen anything like this before. In Mexico, a mayoral candidate was killed. Live on air, a 600 billion deal. Saudi Arabia becomes the largest military force in the region after meeting with Trump. Welcome. My name is Yulia Kokan. And before we begin, subscribe to our channel and like this video if we've caught your interest. Things are about to get heated. Russia is preparing for a large-scale offensive in Ukraine. This is reported by the Financial Times, citing representatives of Ukrainian intelligence. The publication notes, instead of showing readiness for peace talks, Russia is shifting its forces to key hotspots on the battlefield in Ukraine. It is noted that according to the Ukrainian monitoring project Deep State, this week Russian troops have captured more territory in the eastern part of Donetsk region, especially around the cities of Pokrovsk and Toretsk. Ukrainian military personnel also confirm preparations for a major offensive. However, will this offensive achieve significant success? Highly doubtful. After all, how many such scare stories in the style of Kyiv in 3 days have we already heard since the start of the full-scale invasion? And what do you think? Is Putin bluffing to strengthen his position in negotiations, or is he really preparing for a major offensive? And now, let's continue discussing the situation at the front. Near Kupiansk, the occupiers are unable to advance and are suffering losses. Yuri Fedorenko, commander of the 429th Separate Unmanned Systems Regiment Achilles, reported that Krylyakivka remains the last settlement, occupied by the enemy on the left bank of the Oskil River. All other positions in the Kupiansk area, including Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi, are under the control of the defense forces.
The situation in the Kupiansk area is as follows. Despite the fact that the enemy has launched a spring-summer offensive campaign and the escalation of the conflict in these particular sectors has become more intense, the enemy has increased the number of infantry assaults, added more armored vehicles, and reinforced their use of UAV components.
On the occupied territories of Ukraine, the movement of military convoys from the Berdyansk direction through Mariupol has been recorded. This was reported by the advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, Andriy Yushchenko. In particular, at least 2 organized convoys of 10 trucks each have been spotted. Of course, it turned out as it turned out.
The likely destination is the north of Donetsk region. They are using a detour through the territory of Rostov region due to logistical difficulties caused by repairs on the Sadove-Novoazovsk-Donetsk highway.
Andriy Yushchenko writes that the Russians have updated the so-called Surovikin line from Mariupol to Berdyansk. At the same time, they have added new Dragon's Teeth and set up separate observation points at certain distances. Now, the entire road to Crimea in this section, along which massive redeployment of military forces is taking place, is under total control. But Ukraine has the means to reach there. Footage of the launch of Ukrainian long-range drones Cheklon V has appeared on social media. This drone has a range of 700 kilometers. Its warhead weighs a full at 20 kilograms. See for yourself. The European Union has approved the 17th package of sanctions against Russia. The sanctions cover, among other things, Russia's shadow fleet. Almost 200 vessels, including oil tankers, have come under the restrictions. In addition, the EU has approved the imposition of sanctions against about 30 new companies involved in circumventing sanctions, especially those related to dual-use goods. According to one of the diplomats, the EU has also approved 75 new individual sanctions against natural and legal persons connected to Russia's military-industrial complex. Additional sanctions will also be applied for human rights violations, hybrid interference around the world, and the proliferation of chemical weapons. The sanctions were also discussed by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
I welcome the agreement on our 17th package of sanctions against Russia. we continue to restrict access, registered to military technologies. And we have added another 189 Shadow Fleet vessels to the list to target Russia's energy exports.
At the same time, von der Leyen added that the full-scale war in Ukraine must end, and the European Union, for its part, will continue to put pressure on the terrorist state of Russia. The French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Noël Barrot, also had his say. He says that the United States and Europe must be prepared to impose devastating sanctions on Russia in order to force the Kremlin to end the war in Ukraine. He stated this during a broadcast on BFM TV. According to him, he plans to meet in Turkey with U.S. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who has put forward a proposal regarding sanctions.
He has developed an extremely powerful sanctions package, which includes a 500% customs duty on imports of Russian oil and a 500% duty on countries that continue to import Russian oil today.
At the same time, Barrot emphasized that Russia has found ways to circumvent the blockade imposed by Europe and the United States. Therefore, to quote, shutting off the tap is a way to grab Russia by the throat. What will Zelensky talk about with Putin? How did the Russian dictator start publicly mocking this? Why did Trump get scared? And is Europe really ready to take decisive action? The negotiations in Istanbul are the #1 topic everyone is discussing. There is an incredible number of statements being made. But my colleague Karina Kleshchun has already prepared some interesting and fresh details for you. Let's watch.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there really is a lot going on. But for those who aren't aware, if there are any, of course, let me remind you, on May 15th, that is tomorrow, Zelensky is supposed to meet with Putin in person.
The day has come?
No one knows what the outcome will be, but knowing Zelensky's abilities, anything is possible.
Has he lost his mind or what? Has he gone crazy? I'm Ukrainian.
Zelensky is certain that it's simply impossible to resolve everything during these negotiations. But two important issues will be discussed: a ceasefire and a prisoner exchange based on the all-for-all principle. This should be the first result of the negotiations. Since the parties do not trust each other, external mediators can guarantee that all agreements are upheld. But even Zelensky himself doesn't know what to expect.
I don't know. I can't even imagine. No, well, let's put it this way. I'm ready for the meeting. I met with this person back in December 2019. I completely understand what you're talking about. The truth is on our side, but I believe we need to take the first step. The first step for the sake of the people. And now the whole world supports this. Primarily for Ukrainians, but for the sake of any nation, everyone wants the war to end.
But he emphasized that he is ready to do anything to meet with Putin. Moreover, he has already agreed with Erdogan on how this will take place. After all, the president of Turkey is also in favor of a ceasefire.
Once again, we want to make everything clear so that there are no further unnecessary manipulations from Russia and its leader. We talked with President Erdogan that I would have a meeting with him in the capital of Turkey. That is Ankara. It will take place on Thursday, the 15th. We will be waiting for a meeting with Putin in Turkey, so that Russia does not manipulate the cities and claim that Putin is not ready to come to Ankara, but is only willing to fly to Istanbul. I want to say right away that if Putin comes to Istanbul instead of the capital, I have already conveyed the message to President Erdogan, and the Turkish side is prepared for President Erdogan and me to fly to Istanbul. In other words, in any case, we will do everything possible to make this meeting happen.
But it's not just about Erdogan. Europe and the United States are also waiting for this meeting. Even China, which supposedly supports Putin, is urging him to cease fire. By the way, China asked Zelensky not to strike during the parade in Moscow.
We received a signal from the Chinese side that they support the 30-day ceasefire proposed by Ukraine, as well as signals from China and other countries that it would be fair to move toward a complete ceasefire, and that during these dates from the 8th to the 10th, there should be security in the region where many leaders will be present, including China. Volodymyr Zelensky, we understand what is being discussed. Once again, Ukraine has confirmed through its actions that it always does what it promises. There were no strikes on their parade on May 9th, despite Russian propaganda. In fact,
Anna Rizat.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
If Putin does not come, or as the president emphasized, it will look like a complete defeat for him. By the way, the EU has already prepared a new 17th package of sanctions against Russia. They are waiting for the results of the meeting. But will it help? Trump is waiting for good results. And even the president of Brazil wants to personally meet with Putin before Istanbul, to personally convince him that he needs to go.
Sergei Sarkozy, it costs me nothing to say. Hey, Comrade Putin, go to Istanbul and negotiate. Damn it.
Anna Rizatienko. But will Putin actually go? The Kremlin still hasn't revealed the composition of its delegation. That's actually why Trump isn't going yet, by the way. They say they might send Mark Rubio, Kellogg, and Witkoff. But if they openly announce that Putin will be there, then he'll go. By the way, if nothing comes of it, the US will withdraw from the negotiation process. What do you think of such a threat from the White House? At the same time, Trump doesn't really want to spoil relations with Russia. As for Putin himself, he's heard about the threats of sanctions against him. And so what? And he started openly, mocking it.
Vladimir Putin. It seems like, well, they definitely won't do this or that because it hurts them. But they do it anyway, idiots.
Please, excuse me.
So, well, but how is it into a recession? That is, the economies, the leading economies of the world, are falling into recession just to harm us.
Anna Rizatienko. The dictator doesn't want to admit the reason why they want to harm him. But he says that Russia is not afraid of sanctions.
Vladimir Putin, here's my second point.
We can't be intimidated by these possible new sanctions.
You must not be afraid. Anyone who starts to be afraid will lose everything right away.
But it is absolutely necessary to understand what might happen.
Anna Rizatienko. Also, Putin added that he is not afraid of war either, since he can mobilize more human resources, and he criticized our mobilization.
Vladimir Putin, I want to draw your attention to the following.
If the Kyiv authorities are carrying out forced mobilization, Irisadi, rounding people up on the streets like dogs, then our guys are going voluntarily. They go on their own. So our recruitment, well, they are rounding up 30,000 people now, right? And with us, 50 to 60,000, we guys come on their own up every month from your labor collectives as well.
Anna Rizatienko. But ordinary Russians don't see it that way. Among the people, anger is already boiling over. Russians want Putin to leave.
Alexander Hlushchenko. As a result, Putin, just like in the classics, deceived himself and ended up with both war and disgrace.
Almost the entire economic bloc of the government wants the end of the special military operation, as does the central bank, Nabiulina and her people. They're panicking and scaring everyone with talk of a crisis.
Anna Rizatienko. But again, whether he will go or not is still an open question. However, they say that Lavrov and Ushakov will definitely be there. Even Abramovich was spotted in the Kremlin, the same Abramovich who was involved in the Istanbul negotiations back in 2022. All of this, of course, looks like a joke. Putin invites Zelensky to Istanbul. Zelensky, I'll be there. Putin, I was joking. Before the negotiations, Russia put forward its unrealistic demand. As stated by the Russian Foreign Ministry, Ukraine and the West must recognize the occupied territories as Russian during the negotiations. Everything is by the book. Interestingly, as Macron stated, since Ukraine is not joining NATO for now and it is unclear when it will, Europe is ready to deploy its troops in Ukraine, but away from the front line on the right bank of the Dnipro at strategic points for a deterrent effect. And he also wants to deploy nuclear weapons across Europe for deterrence.
Given the times we are living in, I wanted us to be able to initiate, together with all partners who wish to do so, an exercise to see if we can go further. We are ready to open this discussion. I will define the framework very officially in the coming weeks and months, but we have already started doing this with the caveats I mentioned.
The effort to force Russia to peace is now being made by the whole world. If Putin doesn't go himself and instead sends negotiators with unrealistic demands, that would really be shooting himself in the foot. Is the market ready? We're waiting. And what do you think? Will these negotiations have any positive result at all? Write your thoughts in the comments.
But if the sanctions don't have an effect, the U.S. has other arguments. These were hinted at during a speech in the U.S. Congress by the head of the U.S. Northern Command, General Gregory Guillot. He stated that the risk of a direct conflict between the United States and its adversaries, particularly Russia, is increasing. In his report, the general points to the likelihood of a direct clash involving the United States and says that this risk is increasing with virtually all major adversaries. A list that, in addition to Russia, includes China, North Korea, and Iran. Moreover, he says that everything is heading toward a third world war. The general suggests that the cooperation between Russia and China, as well as agreements with North Korea and Iran, increasingly resemble the foundation for a military partnership capable of quickly expanding a conflict from a single front to a coalition of adversaries. Do you believe in such a scenario? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now that's some news. Orbán has accused Ukraine of collaborating with the Hungarian opposition and carrying out a special operation to disrupt the national survey among Hungarians regarding Ukraine's accession to the European Union. The day before, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán announced on his Facebook page that he was convening the Defense Council due to a special operation against his country.
An unprecedented Secret Service operation has been launched against Hungary. I have convened the Defense Council. We will return soon with more details.
As reported by the publication Index, after the meeting, Orbán accused Ukraine of launching, and I quote, a targeted smear campaign. According to the Hungarian Prime Minister, the Ukrainian side had previously improved relations with Budapest in order to later sabotage the referendum on Ukraine's membership in the European Union. In addition, Orbán accused the Hungarian opposition party, TISA, of being involved in this.
Nothing like this has ever happened in our memory. It should be expected that further actions by the special services will be initiated even before the referendum is over.
At the same time, the head of the Hungarian opposition party, TISA, Péter Magyar, stated that Orbán is using the special services against his opponents because he is afraid for his power. For his part, he accused the prime minister of committing two crimes, spreading rumors and concealing a crime against the state. The Hungarian press writes that their sources in intelligence have informed them about a months-long intelligence war between Kyiv and Budapest. It has reached the point where allegedly Hungarian defense forces recently shot down a Ukrainian drone on their territory.
We hope that if they didn't do it, then they received a response because the Hungarians shot down this drone. On the other hand, it's obvious that behind every such attack, there is a secondary intention to intimidate the population, to demoralize the citizens.
2 months ago, on March 14th, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that the decision regarding Ukraine's membership is being blocked by only one country, and that is Hungary. At the same time, Bloomberg reports that the European Union is discussing ways to prevent Budapest from blocking the start of negotiations on Ukraine's accession to the EU. According to the agency's sources, the EU believes that Budapest wants to derail the process, allegedly citing Hungarians who supposedly do not want this. And this is despite the fact that in 2023, Hungary agreed to start talks on Ukraine's accession. And what do you think? Will the European Union be able to overcome all the blockades and provocations from Hungary? Share your thoughts in the comments. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved roadmaps necessary for opening the first cluster in the pre-accession negotiations between Ukraine and the European Union. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal announced this on his Telegram channel.
The roadmaps pertain to the rule of law, public administration reform, and the functioning of democratic institutions. They are fully in line with Ukraine's international obligations, as well as our strategic and programmatic documents.
According to him, the government has also approved the negotiating position for the first cluster of talks, which forms the basis of the EU accession process.
We are taking important steps toward EU membership. Our goals remain unchanged: to open negotiations on all 6 negotiation clusters this year, and after the war ends, to become an integral part of a united Europe.
This is absolute madness. In Mexico, a mayoral candidate was shot dead live on air, right during a campaign event that was being broadcast, live on Facebook. The video shows how, in the Mexican state of Veracruz, the candidate for mayor of Taquistepec from the ruling Morena party, Yesenia Lara Gutierrez Dagua, greets local residents and walks down the street accompanied by supporters. The crowd is chanting slogans when suddenly about 20 gunshots ring out. Thank you. According to CNN, citing the Attorney General's office of Veracruz State, 4 people were killed in the attack, including Gutierrez herself. 3 more people were injured. It is still unknown who could have shot the mayoral candidate. The investigation is ongoing. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia have signed a package of agreements worth, attention, $600 billion and concluded the largest defense deal in history. This was reported by the White House.
Today in Saudi Arabia, President Trump announced Saudi Arabia's readiness to invest $600 billion in the United States, building economic ties that will last for generations to come. The first agreements that were announced strengthen our energy security, defense industry, technological leadership, as well as access to global infrastructure and critical minerals.
The signing ceremony took place in the capital of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, with the participation of Trump and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Thus, the parties signed the largest military cooperation agreement in history. Saudi Arabia will purchase weapons from the United States worth $124 billion. It is planned to provide Riyadh with modern combat equipment and services stolen from more than a dozen companies in the American military-industrial complex. In addition to the supply of modern American-made weapons and equipment, the agreement provides for the development of air and missile defense systems, the modernization of Saudi Arabia's coastal and border security, as well as training and comprehensive support for the Saudi Armed Forces. During Trump's visit, Saudi Arabia, just listen to this, set up a fully functional mobile McDonald's near the royal court to accompany the U.S. president during his stay in Riyadh. Well, a mobile McDonald's is cool, of course, but I have a question. Why do they need so many weapons? What do you think? Are they preparing for something? That's all for now. Give this video a like. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes. Then we'll definitely see each other again.